everybody, it's Casual.Boops. Welcome back to another video. Sorry this one took so long to produce. I got caught up binge watching season 1 of The Boys, so that's what I was doing instead of making this video. Anyways, here we are. Today's video is going to be about TS-5, the Tier 8 American Premium Tank Destroyer, which is currently in the shop, and I'm covering this because I figured some of you might be interested in learning about it, or perhaps you'll see more of these on the battlefield than you otherwise would. So it might be nice to know what it is and how to deal with it, or whether you might want to have it in your garage. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this early information here because you can find all of this stuff on tanks.gg. But really quick, this is the equipment I would recommend on it. I don't have the turbo on it yet because I'm waiting on an equipment sale. But as you can see, the DPM is great, the damage is great. Standard penetration in 248 at Tier 8 is fantastic. Everything about this is great, except the dispersion is kind of not that great. So this means you're really meant to be playing this thing at short to mid-range, so that I've never had an issue with this dispersion working. It's very slow. This is why I recommend the turbo, because the difference between 26 and 30 top speed can make it, means getting to the fight and not getting to the fight. But it's a very good tank, in my opinion, but it's not for everybody, playstyle-wise. It's got a very narrow gun arc, so it can't move its gun from side to side all that much, and that's important. So I just want to go over the armor model real quick, and if you're a low-tier tank, the weak spot being the lower plate is not that weak. It's not a reliable pen, so the cupola is basically the only place you're going to be able to pen from the front. Obviously, if you want to get around the side, or if you can look down at it, everything gets easy then. Or if you're looking up at the lower plate, then everything gets easy as well. But generally the cupola is the easiest spot. But to take down any tank without any kind of a turret like this, just all you have to do is track it twice. Track it once, they'll use their repair kit, you track it again, then you go to the side and farm. But I just want to go over real quick, for those of you that may not know this, if you're dealing with a gun that has fairly high penetration, obviously the lower plate is good, cupola is still good, but this tank also has this part where it flattens out, the armor flattens out around the mantlet is also getting kind of weak. So if you're playing one of these things, you want to keep wiggling, keep moving back and forth, and also do what's called barrel blocking. That's where if someone's close by, you stick your barrel up in the air off to the right in this case. So if this is you, you're going to stick it off to the right. So that way when someone's looking at you and they're trying to pin your cupola, you're wiggling back and forth and your barrel's in the way. This is called barrel blocking. It's really important for everything that has a prominent cupola. Okay, so we're going to get into the game now, watching McCann85 plays TS-5 in a Tier 10 game with 3 artillery on Glacier. And McCann85 is just going to, exercise the zoom feature on his tank. But you notice all the heavies are going to the heavy area, the 1-2, the A-B lane, and McCann is actually not. So to be honest, I kind of disagree with his initial deployment here. He's kind of taking up a sniping position next to an STRV 103B, which is not really what this thing is made for. This is kind of like a baby E3. So if you're, generally speaking, sitting next to a STRV, either you or the STRV is probably doing something wrong. So this thing is really made to be up in the front, taking hits, but I sort of get why... Oh, wait a second. So you can see that the .42 accuracy, the reticle is about as big as the tank itself, but because it's a Ferdinand, you can just kind of cheese it for the most part. But you're just kind of throwing it down range and hoping, really, honestly. So this is why you're not really meant to snipe with this thing, and you can see the accuracy is really holding the can back. But I get why he doesn't really want to go up front, because it is a Tier 10 game, and the enemy has a chieftain and a 60 TP. So I sort of get why Tier 8s don't want to roll up there and try to deal with a Tier 10 with your face. But anyways, it's generally speaking, this tank is not meant to snipe. So this kind of play is not necessarily what I would advise. I'm featuring this game for a reason, but this is not it. So take this with a grain of salt, that parking behind an STRV in the same bush as the STRV is not a good idea. Now, blind firing these bushes, this is a pretty good idea. You can see, you see the shell explode after it hits the ground. That means it didn't hit anything. This is a fine idea. Unfortunately, when this happened, he didn't see the CS-52 LIS sneak up the hill, so he kind of missed those opportunities. But it is what it is. I'll never say bad things about blind firing prominent bushes, because you just never know what you're going to find. and it's just never a bad idea. Unless you're sitting right behind a stirred, that is. So anyways, so far our guys have pushed around the side of the bend here, and this is a really tough flank to put. You can see on the mini-map there, the 279E is going to be dealing, and the 430U are going to be dealing with the enemy heavies that are tucked in, and it's really hard to push around that corner because of all the tank destroyers that are usually at G1, and where the Ferdinand is. It's just a really good crossfire that you're pushing into, so it's really hard to make that work. This is McCann is trying to avoid being balanced by artillery. And now we know that the enemy have come up the 9-0 line pretty aggressively, so that kind of limits your options too. So McCann has to stay on this side of the rock unless he wants to get tagged by the enemy TS-5 again. But you can see the DPM is pretty legit. So this is what I'm saying, you can't just sit in front of these things, or they will eat you pretty quickly. The 400 Alpha still hurts, you know, the penetration's okay. And even those shots at that CS-52, I think it was, you know, those were mid-range, and he could pretty conveniently put it about where he wanted to put it. So, you know, that's about the limit of where the range of what this gun is considered to be useful. But he did okay, you know, and here we are. That looks like the enemy's going to just come to him, hopefully. But you can see it's a little bit awkward. He doesn't have a turret. Good shot by McCann. But anyways, this is part of the reason that a lot of people, there's a certain subset of players in this game that just do not like tanks without turrets. And this is why it's just a little bit on the awkward side, especially when you have a fairly narrow gun arc. You're not as flexible. If you're slow, you can't make sure that your gun is pointing in the right spot in the right time. It's awkward, you know. So now we got so we missed that shot. If we had a turret, maybe we would have hit it. You know, we've got the Charioteer coming up behind you, and a V4 screaming at you here. So McCann's got a heat round loaded, and manages to put it downward into the V4's upper plate, which is the right thing to do. He played that pretty well, perfectly. Now we got to deal with this Charioteer who's proxy spotting him. So this is very awkward. Again, not having a turret, you're seeing the downsides. And McCann does not have the equipment loadout that I recommended earlier in the video. You can see he's running the improved, the modified configuration, and I don't know what else. It doesn't look like his view range is very good, so he must not be running optics. But you can see there the armor does hold up. You know, he bounced a shot from the Ravioli, which Ravioli has 200 standard pen. So that's going to be a tough pen for him.
Target acquired.
E50 heat round bounces off of McCann as well. So this is part of the reason you play this tank. You know, when I showed the armor layout, there are green spots. There are things places you can be penned. So you can't just sit still and dare somebody to shoot you, but you can see he's blocked 2 in a row from the C50M. So it's not like, you know, even a tier 10 shooting gold has to aim, at least. Has to hit the right spots, which is something that most tier 8 tanks can't really say. And that's part of the reason I like this tank, is tier 10's shooting golds still have to aim a little bit. And now we have a problem. This is a downside of having no turret. It's very awkward. You can't, if the enemies bracket you like this or create angles where you can only face one of them, you have a big problem. And that's McCann's about to have a big problem.
We've hit them, but we didn't penetrate their armor. Let's find another.
You can see here, the enemy TS-5 is barrel blocking McCann, but McCann must know the armor layout of TS-5 really well, and starts plugging shots into the weak spot that I showed earlier, and the right next to the mantlet. So he doesn't even need to aim for the cupola. But you can see, even if he wanted to, the enemy TS-5 is doing a really good job of barrel blocking McCann. So he doesn't really have that option. Okay, so now McCann's actually in a really good spot, because this E50 is just sitting here side on. And I must not realize how good the DPM is on this tank.
Enemy armor is hit.
McCann's lower plate's covered, and his cupola is really hard to hit because of this dead tank. It turns out having a dead tank, having the exact same tank dead in front of you is a really good hull-down cover. So this is pretty much best case scenario, but he also has a ravioli behind him. Look, you can see on the minimap, the ravioli bounces off his back. Must not have aimed that shot very well. So what I want to highlight here is, you know, these tier 10s are kind of playing like garbage, but mostly, just look at how quickly, this is one of the reasons I like this tank, is look at how quickly he's just able to eat that E50M. The DPM of this thing just clocks up damage quickly, quicker than you would expect. So now we got to turn. This is one of the drawbacks. It's a slow tank. This is why I recommended the turbo. Is she's not a fast tank, so you really have to plan out where you want to be. McCann doesn't know where that ravioli is going to turn up. Could be anywhere. And we still have 3 artillery. The enemy has 2 artillery, so you really can't just be mindful of that. But even in that short amount of time of shooting at that E50 and TS-5, McCann has managed to rack up 5,700 damage. This is what I'm trying to feature here. Like, the tank has substantial downsides. It's got no turret. It's kind of slow. But, you know, the accuracy is not exceptional. But it does have really good upsides, too, as a trade-off. So, like, the DPM is great. And you can see how quickly that the damage just racked up. The penetration's great, and the alpha's acceptable. Look at it, he doesn't need to hardly aim it at all. It's just, you know, he just throws a shot down there and it behaves. That's kind of my experience with this tank as well. The gun is fairly well behaved. As long as you're not trying to shoot at 500 meters, you know, you have to just know your limitations. I don't know what the plan was here to do a full circle, but anyways, I think McCann is counting on that 277 to take down the Maushin, which I would hope, you know, I would hope that he wouldn't need assistance with that. And that's unfortunate. You know, this is why you never rely on putties. Don't ever assume that your allies will take care of it. You must take care of everything yourself, from my experience. And good on the artillery for trying to put one in and finish the job, but ended up just beating the Maushin. So that's unfortunate. You know, I'll say this, you know, that was a heat round, but that was also the place where he hit the Maushin was the perfectly angled part of the turret. But you know, once he's able to put a shot into the flat side, it just goes in no problem. So, and here I'm just going to speed things up. There's just a lot of driving here. Okay, so here we are back. McCann has finally managed to traverse all the way across the map. He's got an AT round loaded for the GW Tiger. 500 damage and gets the kill on the GW. And doesn't want to die to the Lorraine. So he's trying to be cagey and there we are. So now look at this. I do want to highlight this. Look at how slow this thing turns. Now this is without a turbo, but this Lorraine is about to circle around McCann before he can even rotate. So this is why I say the tank is not for everyone. You know, not everybody likes this, you know, or can tolerate the slower tanks. But you know, when put in the right positions and the right time and the right place, the tank can perform. So that's the game, and McCann ends up carrying the team to victory with 7,143 damage, 5 kills, 1,100 spotting, and 3,800 blocked. Gets the ace tanker, the Hallinen's medal, the Pascucci's, the cool-headed steel wall, and a high caliber. And because McCann was shooting a lot of tier 10 tanks, he ended up with an incredible 2,170 base XP. So anyways, hopefully that illuminates the TS-5 for you, and maybe this is, you know, maybe this has reinforced the fact that you hate this tank and these style of tanks, and that's fine. Maybe you like this kind of thing and this sounds interesting. I personally like mine. In any case, if you see these things in the battlefield, at least now, hopefully you'll know how to kill them easier. And, you know, let me know what you thought of this type of video. This is something new that I've been trying. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay.